Good evening, everyone. My name is Janet Fishman. I'm the president of Hope Organizers, Inc., located in the Los Angeles area of California. And I want to thank you for joining tonight. This series that my company is doing is called Organizing Life Interview Series. Organizing affects every aspect of our lives, everything. And when you need to leave the house in the morning to go to work, when you need to sell a house, when you need to plan a vacation, everything involves organizing. And so with the start of the new year, I wanted to kick off with having Vicki Rothman speak. I want to also introduce you to MJ Finstrom. She owns a company called Hut Dogs. They are a digital marketing and promotion company, and she's monitoring the technology for us tonight. With us on the call today is Vicki Rothman, and she is our January speaker. In February, we're going to have attorney Darren Larson, who's also on this call tonight. She's going to be talking about estate planning. And even if you have already done your estate planning, there's been a lot of changes in the laws that have happened, including Proposition 19, that greatly affects inheritance. She will be talking about that in February. And in March, we're going to have Julie Gunvalson, who is a bookkeeper. She's also on the call tonight. And she's going to be talking about bookkeeping and why it's important to keep your paperwork organized for bookkeeping and accounting purposes. And then in April, I'm going to have another organizer who specializes in digital death, handling digital assets after someone passes away. And then I have quite a few other experts in their field lined up for the rest of the year. So even though I have a career and I love my career, it's still a good idea to shake things up and change things so that your career stays interesting, not only for yourself, but for your audience. And Vicki Rothman is with us tonight to talk about that. Vicki has been a career counselor. She has her own business for almost 10 years called Rothman Career Services. She's a private counselor, career counselor, and she also is the faculty leader of the Santa Monica College, Community College here in Santa Monica, California, for their career center for almost 30 years. So she comes with a lot of experience to share with us tonight. So Vicki, can you summarize for the listeners here, the audience, what you do as a career counselor?
I can. And Janet, thank you for asking me to be a part of this series. It's really exciting. And it's really great to see people coming up with new ideas and fresh ideas for how to move their professions forward, their career forward, especially in this remote environment that I think we're going to be living in for quite some time. I predict another year, but hopefully I'm not being pessimistic. Anyway, as a career counselor, I'm actually an optimist. So what does a career counselor do? So I'm just going to back up. I always was the person that everyone told their life story to upon being met. This still happens. Anywhere I go, people tell me their life stories. I was always really good at giving advice, really good at listening, very on target. And so I knew as I got older and went to college that I wanted a profession where I would help others. As I was thinking about what I wanted to do, this sounds funny, but I knew I didn't want to be a therapist because I was afraid that I would take on other people's problems and I wouldn't be able to separate myself from them. So when I heard about this field called career counseling, I was like, oh, this is a way that I can help other people, but not necessarily in a therapeutic manner where I end up like hearing a lot of their issues and problems. And I do hear it in the career counseling, but it's not the same. So what I do as a career counselor is I help people either figure out a first career, second career, third career, or something might be going on in their career that they can't understand what's not working right. And what I do is through conversation and career assessments, I help them either reevaluate who they are in order to stay where they are and make things work, or sometimes, or a lot of times, to realize that maybe they're not quite in the right field. A lot of my clients come to me, they've never ever made any of their career decisions with what I call intention. And so a lot of the career counseling I do is to help people make decisions that are intentional decisions. And in fact, my Peloton name is Live with Intention. So that's sort of my motto, is that the more you can figure out your intention, the easier it is to kind of manage your life so that you're taking control. It's not just coming at you and you're just kind of disorganized in the way that you approach your life. So that's kind of a summary.
Great. So people might not think that there is a strong connection between an organizer, what I do, and what you do as a career counselor, but I see that there's a great connection, a very important connection. What do you think about being organized when you want to make a change in your career? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. When you're thinking about making a career change, and I want you to know that there are definitely times when I work with people who think they want to make a career change, but it was really more about the relationship that they have with their manager or the relationship they have within the work world, that they didn't really know how to navigate it. And actually, once I teach them how to navigate it, they stay because they learn the words that they need to communicate with other people. But getting back to the idea of you have to be organized is, when someone knows that they want to make a career change, like I always say, like most people, not everyone, when you're planning a vacation, right, you research where you want to go and you check the airfares and you figure out where you want to stay and what kind of hikes you want to do. You don't just go, oh, I'm going to buy, well, some people do, but you don't just say, I'm going to just buy a ticket and go. And it's the same thing when you're looking at career things. You have to be organized. And the way I have my practice set up is it's very orderly and organized in the steps and the way I take people through the career planning process to teach them how to organize their thoughts and organize what they're learning about themselves, to kind of put everything that they're learning in order to move forward, to choose what they want to do. And then I literally help people manage and set up and schedule how they're going to go about the research, how they're going to go about the interviewing, the salary negotiation, settling into the new job. So it is a very organized way. It's just a different way from the way that you, Janet, help your clients become organized.
So can you give us more of an example? Like if someone wanted to change their job or their career, or they just wanted to change things up in their current career, what would their schedule look like to manage their time?
I always tell people that, so I'm working with a gentleman right now that has been out of work for a little bit of time. It was his choice. And he's ready to move back into the workforce. And at first he said to me, I just need money. It's not that important. It doesn't matter what I do. And I said to him, okay, I always hear that, but I'm thinking, oh no, if you're going to be in the work world I think for him, the workforce is going to be another 15 years. You don't want to just do something. So the more we started talking, he started talking more about his passion. And then the more we worked together, I said, can you see that maybe we should look for something that you might feel more passionate about as opposed to just a job? And now that he's in the research phase, I've had to explain to him that he has to have a schedule. He has to have a wake up time, breakfast time, exercise time, whatever it's going to be. And then how many hours a day that he feels he can dedicate to this, because a lot of times people will try and spend 8 hours a day on job search and research and all of that. But instead of working in a concise manner, which is what I think you do, Janet, is when you're with your clients, you help them be very concise. They end up just spinning in their own heads and they spin their wheels and it goes nowhere. So I help them look at like, what can a day look like and what's realistic? And then I actually have them have a check-in time with me every week where they need to email me what's working for them, what's not working for them, and how to help reorganize their day. So it's not something you can do full time, because I don't think you can do anything 8 hours a day that you're just not sure of what's going on.
There is definitely an expression, make a job of finding a job, right? People do think they have to sit for 8 hours a day looking for that job.
Yeah.
It's a new year. people have New Year's resolutions. How do you suggest that they accomplish these goals as it pertains to their careers?
I think everyone makes New Year's resolutions, but me, because I'm afraid I'll break them. So I just don't make them because I don't know if I can keep them. And I think we'll probably get to something that I want to say, but I want to see what your other questions are. And if it doesn't get to something I think is very important for.
You can say it now. Go ahead.
Well, okay. So one of my main assessments that I give is a Myers-Briggs type indicator. It was written by a mother-daughter team based on Carl Jung's theory of personality development. It is put out by a company called the Myers-Briggs Company. There are knockoffs all over the internet that people will take, but usually when they come to me, I make them take it again, because usually a dichotomy is off in those knockoffs ones because they're knockoffs. There's not years and years of research. Well, one of the dichotomy is, how do we organize ourselves to the outer world? Now, Janet, by her profession, is planned, orderly, and organized. And her job is literally to go into people's homes and go into people's lives and help them be planned, orderly, and organized and put it together for them, because they are not capable of doing that. The other side of the people are much more spontaneous, flexible, live by the seat of their pants. They don't like to come to closure because something else might occur. They might do more research. They might see something and they want to be able to take all that information in. So for them, if they close too early, they're going to miss out. And actually, the only way they get things done is by having a fire under their butt, either externally or internally. So Janet may have, I'm just going to make this up. Janet may have said to a client, you know what, Vicki, I need you to have XYZ ready for me. And if they're not very organized, they will wait until probably the night before or an hour before Janet arrives, and they'll make a mad dash and they'll get it done. But what happens with that kind of a personality is they live in a very stressed manner because they don't understand that it's actually okay to be that way. And it's really a matter of learning how to be more planned, orderly, and organized. Like, for instance, I won't ever be as organized as Janet, not in a million, trillion years, but I'm very organized around work. If you looked at my little office right now, because I've commandeered one of my boys' bedrooms, my personality has piles. I don't have a lot of piles right now, but I have a few, but I know what's in every single pile until I don't. And I think what ends up happening with people that engage Janet is they're like me. They're organized till they're not, and then they don't get reorganized. And then it spins out of control until they can't find anything. But I know myself and I'm older, so I know how to get organized and what it takes to get organized. And I work really hard to keep it. So I think for people in this new year and thinking about New Year's resolutions, I always say you've got to be gentle to yourself. You have to be kind, and you have to choose a small step to what you think could get accomplished. So for instance, if you know you're not happy, you don't know why, you can't quite figure out what is happening in the workforce, maybe that is all about having a conversation with a close friend, engaging a career counselor, someone that you can have that conversation with. Let me just give you a quick story. It's been a number of years, but I had this woman that was working as a manager in an antique store up here in West Hollywood, I think it was. And she came to me and she said, I'm miserable. I want to leave my job. I hate my job. We did all the assessments. And the more I got to know her, she started talking about her relationship with her manager. And one day I said to her, I don't think it's about the job. I think it's about the way that you communicate with your manager. And she kind of looked at me and I said, are you willing to have a discussion about this? And she said she was. And I started giving her language and conversation that she could have with her manager to see if she could work it out. Well, she ended up being able to mend their relationship and she stayed. So sometimes people mistake oh, sorry, I'm going to go back to adult development for a minute. Like, my 3 boys were raised with a career counselor mother. I talked about career. They came to my office all the time at the college. They saw what I did. Whenever they got sick, they came to work. Whenever they got suspended, they came to work. Like, they spent a lot of time at my office and at the college. So they got to see what the world of work looked like. Most people don't have that privilege. And so unless you figure out a passion very young, or for instance, someone might say, I don't care what I do, I just want to be really, really rich. That's a value, and that's fine. Then they don't really know what that adult development looks like. So when they get to work and then they get into conflict at work, or their values become in conflict with people at work, they don't know how to straighten that out, and they don't know how to manage it. And that's why not all people that come to me make a career change. But I do get people that sincerely want to make a career change. And I always say, like, be gentle to my friend Janet, be gentle to my friend Blair, because the harder we are on ourselves, the more we grip ourselves, the harder it is to start seeing good things about ourselves. So I don't know if that answered the question. That was a very, very long answer. Sorry.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, I agree with you. I see a lot of clients, they call me, they're crying, they tell me they've been disorganized their whole life. And as they describe their situation, I said, I don't know you, but just by what you're describing, I think you're very highly creative and highly intelligent. And I hear this pause at the other end and they go, how do you know? And I said, because it kind of often goes hand in hand, because sometimes, as you were saying, they live in a different realm. They're busy being very creative, and certain mundane tasks like organizing is like, who has time for that? I'm living up here being highly creative and making a movie and writing a book. Like, what do I need to do that, open my mail for? And so but yet they focus on their weakness instead of their strength skills. And I try to turn that around and I say, look, you need to stay up there, stay writing that movie, stay writing that book, and delegate the things that you don't like to do. And that's, bring an organizer in like myself to help you with the tasks that you don't like to handle. But you need to continue giving your strengths. But a lot of society and schooling focus on people's weaknesses instead of people's strengths. And, if you're not good in math in school, they just keep getting more math homework. Well, it should be the other way around. If you're good in writing, they should be emphasizing the talents of these people. So a lot of people feel focus on their weaknesses, and they don't have self-confidence because the world around them has told them, oh, your room is a mess and you live like a slob and your papers are all messy. Who cares? Like, let them focus on their strengths. And it sounds like through the Myers-Briggs, you can actually help them identify what their strengths are and help them focus.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one other thing I want to say, especially for our listeners, is we only know the world of work that we're exposed to, right? So if you're a first generation, your parents were immigrants, they don't speak English. If you were raised in an area which, was poor, and all you see on TV and all you see in the media are white men in these professions, you don't see that it's a profession you could do. So until you get that kind of exposure, which many people don't get until college, and we get a lot of first generation students at community college because their parents don't even know how to guide them. Our students are lucky they've made it to the community college because their parents know they want more for their kids, they just don't know how to get it. And so I think for a lot of people, it's teaching them how to navigate the world in general, and that there are so many careers out there for them that they just don't even realize.
Mm-hmm. People have been used to schedules and structures. The pandemic has turned this all upside down. How would you suggest people realign their new normal with their values in order to reorganize their structure and their lives?
That is a really good question. So, yeah, it's a really good question, because we sit like this all day, every day now, most of us. And it's very exhausting and it's very tiring. And we're now at the point in the pandemic where all of us have been touched by, we all know someone or a friend of someone who's passed away from COVID. And I think anyone who's had COVID that I've talked to talks about their values have changed depending on how sick they were. And so we are definitely in this time where people are feeling a little bit more lost. They're either hyper focused or they're feeling super, super lost and that it's difficult to make it through the day and it's difficult to be on Zoom meetings where you're intensely looking at people all day, every day. Like you're not in a meeting where you can lean over and whisper to your friend or pass a note or get up and walk out for a moment. Like you can't do that. And so it's really, I think we're a society that is very driven by you have to work harder, harder, harder. Because if you don't work hard, working hard and working yourself to the bone, that equals success. And I don't believe that. I think sometimes being very gentle and kind to yourself equals more of a success. And so for me, I've had to think of new structures, and I think that's what everyone has to do. And I am a natural extrovert. I love being around other people. I miss being around other people desperately. And so for me, I've had to think of ways to find like book group online, chatting with friends in the evening, like just ways to get that little bit of extra stimulation. And I think that people more than ever really have to schedule their days because you could stay in your pajamas all day now. And more than ever, I tell people you for sure have to have a wake up time. My wake up time has gone from 4:30 in the morning because I used to go to the gym at 5. I don't get up now till about most days 7. And that's 2.5 hours. I used to be at work at 7, but now my schedule's moved. So I think it's really seeing like what is bothering me, what's hard for me, and kind of being like gentle and kind to yourself when you're figuring out a schedule. But I think to have no schedule is extremely dangerous. That's what can lead to depression and to, I'm just going to sit and eat, or I'm just going to sit and sleep, or my goodness, I haven't showered for 4 days. Maybe I should take a shower. So I think it's making sure that you have a community still that you can connect with and still making sure that you have some sort of a schedule.
Yes, people can, the time can go through the whole day. People can basically waste a day away. They don't know where the hours go and they didn't accomplish anything. So I'm really big with my clients and having them take out their calendar and write down, try to get a calendar that actually has slots every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, and write down, I'm going to call the insurance company at 9 o'clock. At 9:30, I'm going to call the credit card company. At 10 o'clock, I'm going to call the brokerage account and make appointments with themselves the same way they make an appointment to go to see a dentist or a doctor, because otherwise it won't get done. And so they need to look at that calendar and know these are the tasks that they're doing today. And that way they can feel that they've accomplished things. And so how do you, so I'm pretty, strict about that with my clients. How do you, with your clients, the people that want to make a career change, tell them to organize the day? Do you have something similar where you say from, 10 to 12, you're going to send out resumes, from 12 to 2, you're going to do applications? Do you have some kind of a system like that?
So I'm going to go back to the Myers-Briggs for a minute. So Janet is one part of that last dichotomy that I was talking about, where planned, orderly, organized, right? People in her category love to make lists and then check things off as they go. But the opposite dichotomy is not planned, orderly, and organized. And they might make a list just to get it out of their heads and onto paper. They never look at the list again. So a lot of times what I have to say, once I know my client's Myers-Briggs, I can guide them a little bit better. But when you get someone that's not the planned, orderly, and organized, I say to them, what can you commit to? What can you get done? Because if I try and get them to commit to a schedule that's that detailed, they know they are going to fail. And then they don't do anything because they're so fearful that they're going to fail. So then they just don't do anything at all. And then oftentimes they disappear on me. So I've had to learn, like, who are the people that I can say, let's get the schedule. I have definitely sat with clients and literally said 8 to 9, 9 to 10. Otherwise, with the clients that just can't keep themselves very organized, I'll say, what can you get done in the morning that you would feel comfortable committing to? So I do theirs more as like a question to get them organized, as opposed to trying to impose the organization on them.
And do they accomplish that? And are they accountable?
My planned, orderly, and organized people?
No, the other people.
Yes, but not like you and I would think. Like if they have research that they need to do, and here's another thing about the dichotomy of these people. They'll think about it all week long. They'll be on the internet doing a little research. They'll be talking to their friends and doing a little research. But if their appointment with me is the next morning, they sit down the night before, they hammer it out, they jam it done, boom. So when they get to me, they go, here it is, Vicki, right? Now I know, because I know their type, what they were doing all week long and what they were doing last night. But if they're more like Janet, I know that throughout the week, they've been doing it as they go along. So, and if they disappear on me, I email them and I say, what's going on? You got overwhelmed. Where are we? Let's reset. So
And
it's,
do you find that they are, the success rates between those two different types, is one more successful or they than the other, or does it just take one a little longer? How would you?
both are successful, but they go about it differently. So for my people that are not as planned, orderly, and organized, they are still as successful once they understand and accept who they are. So I'm going to give you an example of one of my boys when he was in college. So he's in college, he's an electrical engineering major. It's his first semester away from home. He is taking a calculus class and he's not planned, orderly, and organized at that point in his college career. And he's putting off doing this homework and he's putting it off. And he's also been told that he gets one free pass during the semester. So if he blows a deadline, he knows he has one free pass. And he's putting off the homework, he's putting off the homework. And when it gets started, because he was brand new, he couldn't get it done in time. And he blew his free pass on an assignment that he actually could have gotten done. And it was a really good learning experience for him to understand that, know who he is, but if he didn't set those internal deadlines well enough, he was going to blow it for himself. And that's what these people have to learn is like, if I don't organize it enough, I will blow it. But when they blow it, they really learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
You need both to get the world going, right? But I would say probably Janet, I don't know, it's a good question. I would say that people that are more organized have an easier time with the job hunt, but it doesn't mean that the other people don't get it done. They just, if they can own who they are, it's easier. If they're constantly fighting who they are, then it's more difficult. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Many people feel challenged by different parts of their daily work. How do you help your clients think about their day-to-day tasks in order to reorganize or change things to feel more satisfied?
I'm working with a woman right now who part of her day is on, oh, I'm going to pull her file. Hold on one second. Because it's fast. She's actually really fascinating. Hope she doesn't listen to this. No, she won't mind because I'm not saying her name. Okay. Part of her day is spent on, where is it, quantitative analysis. And part of her day is spent on qualitative analysis. She likes one, she doesn't like the other. And she finds it suffocating. And so what I tell people usually is that figure out the time of day that you have your most energy. So you can tell if I used to get up at 4:30 in the morning to be at the gym at 5, I'm a morning person. I used to be asleep at 9 o'clock at night. Like right now doing this in the olden days would have killed me because I'd be falling asleep. So I say, figure out what is your height of energy time of the day. And that's when you do your most difficult tasks, your most challenging tasks. And then you can spend the other parts of your day sort of doing those things that don't take as much brain power. So for me, when I wake up in the morning, I am the most productive, and that's when I get things done the most. And then the rest of the day, I can kind of sit back a little bit and take it a little bit more easy. When my dad passed away and we went up to celebrate him, he was living in Northern California, and the men that he worked with, that he was the manager for, said, we have no idea how your dad got his work done. He'd walk around, he'd schmooze with us, he'd help all of us. And I was like, I know how he got his work done. He was like me, or I'm like he was. I get into work, I hammer out, and this is what people who are like me do. I hammer out hours of work in a very short amount of time. People at work are in awe of my ability to do this. So the rest of the day I can take it easy. But I have other people who tell me their hammered out time is 10 to 12 at night. So you have to, it's really, I know this is the counselor part of me. It's like really acknowledging who you are and honoring who you are and just allowing yourself to be that way. And just being like, I always tell people, you have to say like, would you tell your friends the stories you're telling yourself? Would you treat your friend the way you're treating yourself? Would you salary negotiate for your friend the way that you're salary negotiating for yourself? Of course not. So I think that we're this society, we're so hard on ourselves. I'm not saying excuse yourself. I'm just saying like, take it a little bit easier. I'm not as nice as I think you thought I was, Janet.
Well, people that know me now understand why they get emails from me at midnight.
Exactly.
In my field, Vicki, I'm often helping clients do a lot of research for unclaimed property, the best photo book to create, the best file cabinet that'll fit in their space, and other research projects. Do you find that research plays a big role in the work that you do with your clients?
It does. And the interesting thing is, when they're with me, we just go on the internet together. When we're on Zoom, I share my internet. But what'll happen is, so a client will come up with a couple of career ideas. And I'll say, I'm going to show you how to do the research so that you will know if it's something you want. And so I share my screen and I say, okay, we're looking at, one of the clients recently was looking at, I'm sorry, what are they called? The people that are in the hospital, they're clergy and they go and visit everyone. I'm forgetting what they're called. Ah!
Volunteer.
Say it again.
Volunteer.
They get paid. Hold on.
Chaplains?
Chaplain, like a chaplain, but I think there's another name, but yes, chaplain. I think it is chaplain, thank you. So he was really curious about what a chaplain. So I literally go on the internet and I say, this is exactly how you do the research. And I pull it up and I show him. And then there's also, for anyone who's interested, there's a website called ONET Online, ONET Online. And it is a website where you can put in any career that you're interested in. It will pull up that career. It'll give you every career that's adjacent to it. And you can actually find California-based income. It'll talk about job growth, the skills necessary, the kinds of interests people have who are in that career. So it's a really great website. So I'll also always show them ONET because we want to look at California-based incomes. And one of the things that I always do with my client is I say, I need you to tell me what is the range of salary that you want and that you need. Because I don't want to be helping someone look for a career and a salary when they go, that's so low, Vicki, I need 100 and you're showing me things at 60. So then I show them, the clients, how to do all the research, what professional organizations exist, what kinds of conferences that this industry has. And so the more I show, so let's just say this person said, okay, Vicki, you know what? I am more interested in chaplaincy. I show them how to go on to LinkedIn. How do you look up people who are chaplains? How do you connect with them? How do you send them a message? What does the message say? And so I basically take them from here and I help them do the research to bring it down. So I ask them to do informational interviews. So I get them to make sure that it's what they want. And then I teach them how to do the networking, how to find positions, how to do the interview, and how to salary negotiate. I had a client who went from a very, very high paid attorney, and she was only out of college, only out of law school for a couple of years. And she was in a very, very big law firm here in Los Angeles, and she had no life. She was spending 24/7 married to her law firm, but she was being paid an incredible amount of money for a young lady. And she came to me and she said, I can't do this. I can't date. I want to get married. I can't do it. So we worked together, and she actually ended up taking a job with a nonprofit up in Northern California. And they offered her one salary. It was too low for her. So what I'll do with clients is I'll say, after your initial, as soon as they give you the offer, you say, thank you. I need to think about this. And you get off, then they get on the phone with me. And then I say, this is what you say to them. And then they go back and they say, okay, blah, blah. Anyway, she ended up getting 10,000 more through our negotiation. She thought she had hit their ceiling, and she hadn't. So I help people go all the way through. And so, yes, absolutely, that includes a tremendous amount of research. And if I have to do research on behalf of my clients to help them, I do that too, because I know it can be scary.
Is ONET available just in California or nationwide?
It's national. I will put it in the chat.
And would you say?
I think it's org.
.org. Okay, thank you. And would you say the informational interview, how much do you feel that it can help in the organization process for a person looking to switch careers?
I think it can help a lot, because there are certain personalities that get very excited about the idea of something, but not necessarily what the actual career is. I think it's a really good way to find out. Like I always tell people, when you go into an informational interview, you say, what does your typical day look like? You know, what kinds of people do you work with? What is your percentage of time worked in meetings? So they really, the more people can find out information about something, and I always say you need to do an informational interview with more than one person, because everyone sees their job differently. You need to do that so you can get a sense of if your values are going to be met. And what I didn't say, but is that one of the things I do as a values assessment is to help people understand what their core values are today that they want met in the workforce. And so one of the things you can do in an informational interview is I have my clients, once we've got their 8 or 9 core values, I have them write questions that they could ask in an informational interview that would help them see if that core value is going to be met. And then they bring it back to me and we go through the questions together. And that way I can say, hey, let's word this one a little bit differently, or you can't ask that, or that was a great question. So that way people can make sure, I'm telling you, I can just tell you, and I'm sure all of you and all the work that you've done is if your values aren't met, you're miserable. The bottom line is values need to be met. And then the other part of that, which I didn't talk about, are skills. And one of the beautiful things about the skills assessment I use is it helps people see what skills they have that they're good at, that they want to use, what skills that they have that they're good at, but they're burned out. They don't want to use them anymore. That's a lot of times why people are making the change. They don't want to use those skills anymore. Or are there skills that they want to learn? So a lot of times I'll end up sending someone to maybe a short-term career certificate at a college in order to gain new skills to do the pivot to change fields. Because people will come to me and they'll say, I do not want a master's degree because I do not want to take on that debt, but they realize that they are sort of out of touch with certain fields and they need a little bit of training to make the pivot. So, and I'm just going to say to all of the people listening, in my mind, the only reason you get a master's degree, besides if you just adore education, which some people would be permanent students, the only reason you get a master's degree is it's going to get you something you can't get on your own. And you also, if you're doing this as like a midlife master's degree, you need to make sure if you're taking out loans, that the amount of money that you can make in that field is going to have the ability to both pay off the loans and still give you the salary that you need to live the life that you want to be living. And that's something people don't think about. So I get people coming to me saying, I've got 2 master's degree and $150,000 in debt and I'm still not happy. They never made a career decision with intention.
Do you think that organization, being organized, is a value?
I think for some people, they would feel that being personally organized is a value. And I think that for the people that can't do it, they would like to be organized. I think that, I mean, I've taken Janet's, gone to some of the workshops that you've done, like the first one I did was the one on how to find money. I went out and helped all my friends and relatives find unclaimed property money. I think if I had my way, every single person who's not organized would have someone to help them be organized. And in a lot of relationships, someone who's not as organized will actually end up with their opposite, because opposites attract. And so, you know, I joke with my sister, she's very planned, orderly, and organized. Everything in her house has its place. Every place has its thing. And her poor husband, God bless him, is not organized. And she'll literally say, they have this teeny office before she did work where she actually needs the office because she's home. She used to be like, this is your office. You can do anything you want in the office. The rest of this house is mine. It's organized and you need to keep the organization. So I actually think for people like me that aren't as organized, having the Janet Fishmans in the world is super, super important, because what it does is it clears your head of all the distraction and clutter in order to actually be able to do what you want. One of the things that I got from that, Janet, and from just knowing you for a while now and listening when you talk about your career, is at the back of our house, when we moved in, the guy had redone it and flipped it. It was many, 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 many years ago. And he had put in this weird sort of desk and cubicles, and it just turned into this crap area for 26 years. And I think it was your subtle influence. We went and hired someone and we redesigned the entire area. Everything has its place. Every place has its thing. When the groceries come home, I know exactly where they're going to. I cannot tell you how much better I feel. But I think if you had not kind of planted some of that ideas, I would never thought to have done it. So, yeah.
Well, that was very, very interesting. And I'd like to open it up to people. If anyone has questions they would like to ask Vicki, we can take people off of mute, MJ, and see if anyone has a question they would like to say, or you can put it in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with.
Free career counseling, free career counseling.
Can we unmute people, MJ?
They'll need to unmute themselves.
Okay.
The way it works, yeah.
So if anyone would like to ask Vicki a question, you can unmute.
I have a question. So I really loved what you said about accepting how we are and not being overly hard on ourselves. That was actually really eye-opening. So thank you. But I'm still trying to figure out. So you were talking about this one category of person that's like the organized and orderly person. And then you talked about these other people who aren't. So that's definitely my category. But what do you call those people? And what sort of defines them? Because they were just kind of the other ones. But I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on what they're like, because I definitely feel like I'm in that pile.
They're known to be spontaneous, flexible, open-ended, love to just gather things and information in, and will make a decision, but don't want to make a decision because they don't want to miss anything. They're actually a lot of times kind of like, so I will tell you, so on the Myers-Briggs, what Janet is called a judger J, and I'm the perceiver P. I am you, Jessica. I feel you. I totally feel you. But in a way, so when I see, like with Janet, and my old boss, my old dean who just retired was like this too. She would have, I'd go into her office and she'd have this big old list. And for our meetings, she'd send me these big old lists, and I'd have to, like an hour before the meeting, print it and write out my answers to make sure she thought I was organized. But you need both people, because being able to be open and flexible does actually allow you to look at things and to take in more information than people that are more planned, orderly, and organized and come to closure. And so part of the beauty of that is that for me, I've just accepted, oh, here's like a typical Myers-Briggs question. Like, if you're going to do something for day, would you rather plan ahead of time or just go? So Jessica, I'm assuming like me, you're the just go. We're fun.
Yeah.
We're fun. We go to Europe and we go, okay, we're going to stay in this hotel and we're going to get up the next morning and I'm just going to go out and greet the day. Oh, and there's a museum down the block. I love it. I'm going to go to that museum, right? Janet is cringing, you guys, as I'm telling you. She is. But when we don't own the fact that we are peas, Jessica, because the world doesn't like us, we're harder to deal with. If we don't own it, then we just sit there in the grip all the time. And until I looked around my desk and started realizing like, oh, I'm getting some piles again. I'm getting some piles again. And I'll go through them. Really owning. And the other thing is for people that are peas, they like to do a variety of different things throughout the day. So when you're thinking about career, you need to look for something that's going to give you the opportunity to do different things in your day-to-day work. Because if a P is forced to do the same thing over and over repetitively, they just blow up.
And
Does this make
Jessica,
sense?
I find people that she's describing to be highly intelligent and very creative, and they should stay in that realm. And then the things that they don't like to do, like the filing and organizing the papers and handling the mail, hire an organizer to come in and deal with it because, and I love that. Love going to my different clients every day and working with the highly intelligent and highly creative people because I love to see what they're accomplishing, what gifts they're bringing to the world.
It's the same what I was going to say, Janet. It's a gift. We bring different gifts.
Well, thank you. That's very, very encouraging and liberating.
Good, 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 good.
I've got a question. Yeah. Thank you so much, Vicki. About 5 years ago, I started changing careers from a very specific, actually, I'm an architect. I'm still an architect, but very focused work that I was doing into more of I'll call it a gig economy, but where I have a lot of different clients and I have different kinds of work. It's a creative environment that I'm in now. And I am finding it really difficult to know because many of my clients I'm reaching through LinkedIn, you mentioned, or through Facebook, or they're not even here in Los Angeles, right? They're somewhere else. And I'm finding it a little challenging to sort of keep up with social media, to know which places to be, where to spend my time. What kind of suggestions do you have for people that are transitioning and are now kind of, having to deal with social media, or how important is that?
MJ, you should be answering this one. I tell clients, so this is going to seem strange to you, but I hate resumes. I know employers have to get something from you on paper to see who you are. I hate resumes. I feel like they're so rote, they're so boring. And the thing that it doesn't tell you is really who that person is. And so LinkedIn has become sort of that thing, like you have to have a LinkedIn page. Everyone has to have a LinkedIn page and everyone has advice about what that LinkedIn page has to look like. And then others would say, well, if you're going to do your own thing, then you need to be on Instagram and you need to tweet. And, before you know it, you're down the rabbit hole of social media and you don't have time for your own work. But that's why I wanted MJ to weigh in on this one.
Sure.
And you have to have a website that shows,
Oh, right.
you don't forget the website. Go ahead, MJ.
Well, we have lots of options, I think, and there's TikTok, there's all kinds of things, and everybody tells us you got to be here, you got to be there, but you got to be where your people are, where it makes the most sense, and start there and find ways to streamline it too. I think there's technology is great, and I think we've all learned a whole heck of a lot about technology during the pandemic. I mean, these tools have been around forever. We've just started using them. but we have to start using them a little bit more efficient. So we don't go down that rabbit hole and get sucked into the, oh my gosh, you're on social media for 5 hours, but find a way to make it really efficient. And the part of social media that I think people don't get is the listening. It's social. What do you do when you go out to dinner with a friend? Part of it is listening if you're a good friend, right? And I think you can gain more just by listening instead of blasting. So that's sort of my take on social media.
Thanks. Thanks.
Anyone else have any questions? Well, I think then this is a good stopping point. I want to thank Vicki again for a wonderful conversation with us about how to organize your time and for career change. And my website, speaking of websites, is hopeorganizers.com, HOPEORGANIZERS.com. And we look forward to you signing up for February's interview series.
And thank you so much for having me. It was really fun. It was nice to meet all of you, and feel free to reach out if you have more questions.
Yes, and good. She put her